To the May 19th, 2025 Eugene City Council public hearing. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the instructions listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meetings materials page of the city's website. There are two public hearings on tonight's agenda. Please note that members of the public who sign up to testify may speak only on the topic that is the subject of the stated hearing. For those wishing to testify during the public hearing, please fill out a request to speak form available on the city's public webcast and meeting materials webpage, and those request to speak forms will be used to generate the order of speakers and correctly enter speakers' names into the public record. We will accept request to speak forms until 5:35 p.m. As a reminder, Council's meeting rules of conduct apply to all attendees, both in these chambers and in the lobby, and include no flags, signs, loud or disruptive language, noise, or conduct that obstructs the business of the Council. Please keep the room quiet and respectful for all speakers, and you are, of course, welcome to wave your hands in silent support. Additionally, we encourage all those who are ill or who have recently had contact with others who are ill to join our meeting remotely rather than in person. And we also encourage attendees to spread out within the meeting space and wear a mask if you would be comfortable doing so. We have some available in the lobby if you need one. In case of medical emergency, an automated external defibrillator, an AED, is located on the counter behind staff to your left on the west side of the room. And in case of emergency evacuation, emergency exits are through the double doors located at the back of the room and the double doors near the front of the room. The doors to the patio can also be used as needed. And with that, I call this meeting to order. The first public hearing on tonight's agenda is public hearing on an ordinance vacating a portion of First Avenue West located within the plat of Pioneer Resources Business Park and providing for an effective date. Assistant City Manager, would you please introduce the topic?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the Eugene City Council is holding a public hearing to consider a request to vacate improved city right-of-way. The area for vacation includes a portion of West First Avenue within the Pioneer Business Park, which is located in West Eugene. This vacation would facilitate an expansion of the previously vacated area within the same business park, which was approved last year. While the applicant has requested a vacation for the streets, they propose a public utility easement for the entire vacation area to ensure future access is maintained for any existing underground infrastructure. Tonight is a public hearing only, and deliberations are scheduled for June 23rd.
Thank you, staff. The City Council's role in this process is to approve with modifications, or deny the application. The decision-making process for this application is considered quasi-judicial, and so we'll use a quasi-judicial format for this public hearing. To start, do any councilors need to disclose any bias, conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or abstentions pursuant to Eugene Code 9.7065? Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mike, Councilor.
Thank you. Question for legal. So the prior vacation, if there were conversations involved with that, are those considered separate from conversations around this action?
Thank you, Councilor Groves. Yes. So we are looking specifically for communications related to this vacation application. There was a previous vacation application for another portion of this West First Avenue. Conversations related to that are a prior application and would not, you would not need to disclose them as ex parte communications for this application.
Thank you. I have no conflicts then, Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no other disclosures from, thank you, Councilor Clark.
Mayor, I have no conflicts of any kind. I do have an ex parte contact of sorts, I suppose, in that I did not have detailed discussions, but I had at least a brief discussion with Mr. Roberts from the University of Oregon. So
It's our second public hearing.
not this one. That's the next one. Then please remember that, and we'll talk about that on the next one.
Thank you, Councilor. Seeing no other disclosures from council, staff, have we received any questions or challenges about councilors' impartiality submitted pursuant to Eugene Code Section 9.7065, subsection 5? Thank you. No. Testimony presented at this public hearing should be directed towards the applicable approval criteria and/or other criteria that the speaker believes apply to the decision. The applicable approval criteria for this code amendment are located in Eugene Code Section 9.8725, and the full text of that code section is available in the findings attached to the AIS for this public hearing. The failure of anyone to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the City Council and parties an opportunity to respond will preclude appeals on that issue. For quasi-judicial proceedings, once the public hearing is opened, we start with a statement from the applicant, followed by speakers called in the following order. 1, the applicant, followed by those in support. 2, those with a neutral position. And 3, those opposed. We ask that each speaker begin their testimony by confirming whether they are in support of, neutral to, or opposed to this vacation request. Because this is a quasi-judicial land use hearing where the applicant bears the burden of showing that the proposed vacation complies with the applicable approval criteria in the Eugene Code, the applicant may speak for up to 10 minutes. Anyone who wishes to speak will be limited to the typical speaking time of 2.5 minutes. Anyone else who wishes to speak will be limited to 2.5 minutes. If you would like to receive future notice of this application and become an interested party, please also provide your name and mailing address with your testimony or reach out to staff with this information. And I now open the public hearing. The applicant's representative, Rick Satry, is in attendance, but has chosen not to make a statement. Chairs, do we have any interested parties asking to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no speakers for this first hearing.
Thank you, staff. No staff response to no speakers, I imagine, and no rebuttal from the applicant. Any questions from council? Then with that, I will now close this public hearing unless there are any objections from the council, and I will also close the record for these applications or code amendments. As a reminder, deliberations and possible action are scheduled for June 23rd, 2025. Our next public hearing on tonight's agenda is a public hearing on an ordinance vacating a portion of Moss Alley and providing for an effective date. Assistant City Manager, would you please introduce the topic?
Thank you, Mayor. This is our second public hearing tonight to consider another request to vacate improved city right-of-way. The area for vacation includes a portion of Moss Alley south of 17th Avenue, which is near the edge of the University of Oregon campus. The purpose of this vacation is to create a development site for the future construction of a University of Oregon student residence hall. The applicant also proposes a public utility easement for any remaining underground infrastructure within the vacation area. Tonight is a public hearing only, and deliberations are scheduled for June 23rd.
Thank you. Again, the City Council's role in this process is to approve with modifications, or deny the application. The decision-making process for this application is also considered quasi-judicial, so we will use a quasi-judicial format for this public hearing. To start, again, do any councilors need to disclose any bias, conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or abstentions pursuant to Eugene Code 9.7065? Councilor Clark.
What I said before.
Councilor Clark, would you briefly restate what you said before in this hearing?
I've had a conversation with the representative from the University of Oregon, which was very briefly informational, and that would be an ex parte conversation, I suppose, in this case, but still renders the ability for me to make a fair and impartial decision. Thank you.
Councilor Kaczynski.
Yes, about a month ago, I met with Matt Roberts from the university and to discuss various issues that were affecting the city and the university. The proposed Moss Alley vacation was one of the list of topics that was of potential future interest, but we did not discuss it in depth. And I feel like I can make an unbiased decision based on the evidence.
Councilor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I, too, had a meeting with Matt Roberts from the University of Oregon. This is one of the topics that we talked about briefly, and I don't feel that I have any problem making an unbiased decision in this regard.
Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had a meeting with Matt Roberts, talked about a number of issues. This one, he just advised me it was coming, but my recollection is we really didn't discuss it, and I don't believe I have any biases for or against based on that. Thank you.
Counselor Leach?
Similarly, I discussed the project. It was informational in nature with Matt Roberts, and appreciate the information so I can feel prepared but not biased to make this decision. Thank you.
Counselor Keating, remotely?
Adding my voice to the note of an ex parte communication with the University of Oregon's Matt Roberts, providing information about this proposed vacation.
And Counselor Zelenka?
Same with me. Numerous conversations with folks in the past about the East Campus plan, which includes the vacating the Moss Alley, but I don't believe that impacts my ability to make a fair and impartial judgment.
Thank you, counselors. Oh, yes, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of the ex parte communication disclosures, I just wanted to take a moment. I know, Mayor, that you are about to let everyone know that they have the opportunity, they will have the opportunity as part of this public hearing to rebut any of the substance of those communications, but also to remind both counselors and the public that counselors, because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, you are required to make an unbiased decision, and it is required to be based solely on the applicable approval criteria from the code and the evidence and argument in the record that is provided to you. So the written records that you have received thus far and the testimony that comes in tonight. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, City Attorney. Before we proceed, I will reiterate that anyone testifying has the right to address or rebut the substance of the ex parte communications just disclosed by counsel. Staff to confirm if you received any other notifications challenging counselors' impartiality submitted pursuant to Eugene Code Section 9.70655. No, thank you. Yes, Counselor Zelenka?
Yeah, I have a question for City Attorney. So this hearing is about the Moss Alley vacation, but the reason for the Moss Alley vacation is to build a dorm there. And this would run through the middle of it, which makes it difficult to do. There are subsequent things that need to occur in order for that dorm to be built, like changing the zoning and things like that. Questions about that or concerns about that can be said after the hearing, but they're not relevant to necessarily the Moss Alley vacation.
Yes, Councilor Zelenka, I think that's accurate. What council is considering is a proposed vacation of a portion of Moss Alley, which means that the public's right to use it as a right-of-way for pedestrian and vehicle access would be given up, although the university has offered to retain a public utility easement over the area so that the utilities that are in the ground can still be accessed. The criteria that council will consider for this proposed vacation is really just whether it's in the public interest. And so you're taking the materials that are provided specific to the vacation itself, not things that might happen later. And you are considering whether it is more in the public interest to maintain this as a right-of-way or to, if it's not necessary to be maintained as a right-of-way and can be vacated so it can be developed in other ways.
Is the reason for the vacation that the U of O is putting forward the relevant to this proceeding for the vacation? Because you wouldn't do the vacation unless you wanted to build the dorm, and the dorm has impacts.
It's relevant in that you are considering whether this portion of the alley is still necessary or it is in the public interest to maintain it as a right-of-way, or whether it's not necessary to maintain it as a right-of-way and can be developed as something else. Whether the specific something else is less important than the, do you need it as a right-of-way or can it be redeveloped as something else.
Okay. Mayor, with that, I'd point of privilege to make a comment after we're done with this hearing.
Thank you. Yes, noted. Moving on to testimony. Testimony presented at this public hearing should be directed towards the applicable approval criteria or other criteria that the speaker believes apply to the decision. The applicable approval criteria for this code amendment are located in Eugene Code Section 9.8725, and the full text of that code section is available in the findings attached to the AIS for this public hearing. The failure of anyone to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the City Council and parties an opportunity to respond will preclude appeals on that issue. For quasi-judicial proceedings, once the public hearing is opened, we'll start with a statement from the applicant, followed by speakers called in the following order. First, the applicant, followed by those in support. Second, those with a neutral position. And third, those opposed. We ask that each speaker begin their testimony by confirming whether they are in support of, neutral to, or opposed to this vacation request. Because this is a quasi-judicial land use hearing where the applicant bears the burden of showing that the proposed vacation complies with the applicable approval criteria in the Eugene Code, the applicant may speak for up to 10 minutes. Everyone else who wishes to speak will be limited to the typical speaking time of 2.5 minutes. If you would like to receive future notice of this application or become an interested party, please provide your name and mailing address with your testimony or reach out to staff with this information. And I will now open the public hearing. And I believe that we are joined by the applicant's representative, Colin MacArthur, to speak on behalf of the applicant, and that we also have a second participant as an applicant's representative in the room. Mr. MacArthur, you may now begin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Colin MacArthur, applicant's representative with Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning here in Eugene. I'm joined by Dr. Michael Griffel, Associate Vice President for Enrollment and Student Services and Director for University Housing. Michael will begin our presentation by speaking to the importance of this action to university housing. Michael?
Mayor, councilors, thank you very much for the opportunity. So the first thing is the new residence hall is about student success. This vacation allows for a residence hall design that supports student success. Incoming first-year students who live in the University of Oregon residence halls have higher grades, higher retention rates, graduate at higher rates, and graduate faster than those who live off campus. The primary learning goals and focus of the residence halls are cultural competence, integrated learning, relationships and community, well-being, and responsibility. Living on campus facilitates broad and inclusive communal engagement, contributes to students exploring purpose and meaning, and facilitates students making long-term social connections. This vacation allows first-year students to be near other first-year students and frees up other on-campus housing types for older, graduate, and non-traditional students with families. Growth in the student body. The university needs new residence halls to support future incremental growth. U of O plans to very slowly and incrementally grow the student population. The university is not planning to grow to the size of other big 10 schools, but slow incremental growth. And U of O needs to build infrastructure to support that incremental growth, including this new residence hall. Housing supply increases are needed in planned ways in this important location. UO recognizes the impact of this project on our near-campus neighbors. We've communicated with neighbors through the planning process, numerous open houses. Some of you may have attended or be familiar with those, and we plan to continue to inform and engage UO and community members throughout the construction and operation of the residence hall. UO has been planning student housing in this area for decades and owns properties adjacent to the portion of the alley proposed for vacation. This site is ideal given its proximity to campus facilities, public transit, and pedestrian infrastructure, commercial activity on Franklin Boulevard, and the neighborhood hub at 19th and Agate. The new residence hall would make very efficient use of limited university land. The new residence hall will increase housing supply on campus and in the broader community. This would also free up off-campus housing stock for non-students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. I will address the criteria of approval for the vacation. There is one criteria of approval, and that is whether or not the vacation is in the public interest. I will note that the applicant has another application under review, and that is an application for code amendments, refinement plan amendments, and zone change approval for a portion of the East Campus area. This is the application I believe that Councilor Zelinka alluded to in his opening remarks. However, this action is independent and separate from that application. In other words, construction of the residence hall is not dependent upon that application. Regarding the public interest, the findings included with the ordinance demonstrate that the vacation is in the public interest. The applicant has met and exceeded the consent threshold. They have obtained concurrences from all affected utility providers. There is a plan to relocate utilities and secure them in easements. The vacation is necessary for university housing's future plans. And then the city has received and will receive additional testimony in support from the university community and other community members at large. That testimony emphasizes the importance of increasing housing supply in our community. This action will lead to that. Based on the weight of the evidence, we urge the mayor and council to approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Cherish, do we have any other interested parties asking to speak this evening?
Yes, we have 2 people signed up for the public hearing.
Staff, can you please share that list of speakers on the screen?
I will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. When you are called to speak, please state your name and your ward or neighborhood, if known, before beginning your comments. If you are providing testimony via Zoom, when it is your turn, we will announce your name and allow you to speak. If you are announced as the next speaker and physically in the room, please move to the seat in the front row designated for the next speaker. When it is your turn, you may come to the podium. Please leave any bags you may have with you at your seat. If you have documents to give council, please place them in the basket near the podium. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. The timer will flash red when you have 15 seconds remaining to speak. Your microphone will be muted at the 2.5-minute mark. Please note that screen sharing or displaying information on the screen is not allowed. All right. Our first speaker is Robert Chiquette, followed by Daisy O'Hearn.
Good evening. I'm Bob Choquette, and I live in that other city in Lane County, but I am here in a different capacity. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the University of Oregon's application to vacate Moss Alley. As I said, I'm Bob Choquette, and I'm from the U of O School of Planning, Public Policy, and Management, but I'm here tonight in my capacity as the chair of the Campus Planning Committee. I support the vacation of Moss Alley to accommodate a new residence hall in the East Campus area, and the vacation of Moss Alley is critical to increasing the housing supply on campus and within the community. The university has long identified the East Campus area for future student housing. Its proximity to transit and commercial activity along Franklin Boulevard make this an ideal location for an on-campus student housing. The university needs new residence halls to support future incremental growth. The vacation of the alley allows for a residence hall design that supports student success and makes efficient use of limited university land. On-campus housing improves student performance, reduces academic costs, and intentionally connects and engages students with the university. The 2 new residence halls will increase the housing supply on campus and within the community. They will allow first-year students to be near other first-year students living on campus. The Phase 1 Residence Hall project is the first project informed by the Next Generation Housing Development Plan, which, along with updates to the university's East Campus Area Plan, were discussed during 9 Campus Planning Committee meetings and 2 open houses. The Campus Planning Committee reviewed the schematic design for the Phase 1 Residence Hall project at its March meeting and recommended to the university president that it be approved. It's my pleasure to endorse the approval of this vacation application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Our next and final speaker is Daisy O'Hearn.
Hello, my name is Daisy O'Hearn, and I'm a senior at the University of Oregon. I'm studying political science with minors in legal studies and nonprofit administration. When I started college in the fall of 2021, it was the heat of COVID and everyone was masked up, and I was living in the residence hall. But one thing that was for certain was I felt safe in the residence hall, and I felt like I had a community. I'm also a first-generation college student, so no one in my family's ever attended college. And so being in the residence hall was an area where I was able to gain support both academically, but also in my social life. I had people to teach me along the way, and the residence halls absolutely helped that. Additionally, in the halls, I found my closest friends, I found work opportunities to help me financially, and I found a place where I truly belong. Living on campus created the environment I needed to succeed, both academically, professionally, and socially. I now serve as the director of the Residence Hall Association. I help plan events like silent disco, bingo nights, movie nights, and ice cream socials. They're all designed to help students connect and build community, and I've seen firsthand how important the sense of belonging is, especially in the residence halls. That's why I support the new Residence Hall project and the proposal tonight. These buildings create life-changing opportunities for people like me, especially first-generation college students. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy. Mayor, that was our final speaker.
Thank you. Any staff response? And any additional response from the applicant to the testimony given this evening or a final statement? I do not see Mr. MacArthur. Okay, thank you.
No final statement.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Any questions from council for staff? Councilor Zelenka. Okay. Any other questions from council? Thank you. Councilor Clark. Are there any councilors currently in the queue?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilor Keating.
Thank you. I'm going to frame the question under the community. I think I know the answer, just looking for some clarification. Past events in the summer have attracted attention from all over the world to Eugene and the University of Oregon in particular. It's understanding the dorms were used to house athletes for the World Athletic Games, for example. Are there can that be confirmed? And are there any other instances in which student housing, dormitories in particular, have provided a community benefit by housing folks either in inclement weather or guests from out of town, like the aforementioned World Athletic Games?
I don't have that information offhand, Counselor.
Councilor Keating, this is Mayor Knutson. Assistant City Manager Rodriguez does not have information about the dorms use for events like the World Championships. I'm not sure if staff has additional information. Staff, may we invite the applicant back to the microphone, please?
Yes, the residence halls were used as the athletic village during the World Athletic Championships, and various summer camps and conferences are used in the residence halls, and a variety of programs that we think serve the community really well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a follow-up clarification, or not follow-up question, related more to the current use of the Moss Alley. Is there any plan? Well, first of all, what delivery systems or emergency vehicles regularly use that that alleyway, and what mitigation plan is in place, or what alternative is in place if Moss is becomes housing.
Counselor, we'll have planning staff come up and answer that for you. 1 second.
Thank you, Counselor. There are a variety of vehicles serving the U of O Central Kitchen, I believe, but we will follow up with a diagram of the current delivery route and the future delivery route that will replace the current delivery route after the vacation. Does that answer the question? I didn't catch all of that.
Yeah, I got a sense, and apologies, I'm in a spot on I-5 where it's a little patchy and spotty. Thank you. I look forward to learning.
Any other questions from council for staff? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing unless there are any objections from council, and I will also close the record for these applications, for this application. And as a reminder, deliberations and possible action is scheduled for June 23rd, 2025. And with that, I now close the May 19th, 2025 public hearing. We are adjourned. Sorry, I am going to bring us back and unadjourn us. Counselor, I'm so sorry. Counselor Zelenka wanted to offer some comments before we closed.
Thank you. Thank you, Council and the Mayor. For future reference, I wanted to alert the Council to an important potential neighborhood livability issue with the U of O's future plans about this area. The Moss Alley vacation is one part of a bigger plan that the U of O is developing. And that plan, I believe, includes pushing out the eastern boundary of the university into the Fairmont neighborhood and potentially asking us to vacate 15th Avenue and maybe other places along the way and building out that area, including the dorm. In that boundary, they put a multi-story dorm and other buildings there that would require deliveries and traffic and access and egress and on a consistent and ongoing basis. And to build the dorm, they'd need to get a zone change to public lands. And public land zoning does not have the same requirements for studies and impact analysis on neighborhoods as regular commercial zoning do. For instance, when the U of O could basically put the entire city of Coburg in that little 4-block area worth of people, and without any analysis or impacts onto the Fairmont neighborhood in public lands zoning. If those blocks are locked into pedestrian only, they'll push all the traffic and noise and activity into the Fairmont neighborhood because they'll have to go around it into the neighborhoods. Specifically, they would not be required unless we stipulate that they must do this kind of analysis, to do a traffic analysis and a mitigation plan to prevent those impacts onto the neighborhood. If you recall the zoning change to build the Matt Knight Arena, the U of O asserted that they did not have to address traffic noise and litter impacts on the neighborhood from the arena in the Fairmont neighborhood. And the neighborhood raised money, about $10,000, by the way, and took the U of O all the way up to Luba, where they again reiterated they didn't have to address those issues. And the Fairmont neighbors questioned this assertion. They used an example of, well, they say they can do anything, including building a nuclear power plant. And the ALJ, the administrative law judge, actually sided in favor of the neighborhood and said, and addressed and used that site as, no, they can't just do anything. They have certain restrictions. And so the reason this is important is that we're facing the same issue with this as we were with the arena. And the reason that's important is because those potentially huge impacts on the Fairmont neighborhood. And I'm concerned that if the U of O is allowed to proceed without any analysis or plan to mitigate the traffic and noise impacts from the dorm and the rest of that development, again, potentially the size of the city of Coburg in that little area, that they would push all that traffic out into the neighborhood and put that burden unfairly onto the neighborhood without a significant analysis and significant mitigation plan, which would decrease the quality of life in that neighborhood. And that's something we should all be concerned about, that reducing the quality of life in neighborhood because of development. If it can be mitigated, it should be. So when it comes time, I hope when we get to that part of the analysis that you and me and the Planning Commission will join in making sure that those issues and concerns are addressed in how they do this planning and not just have them be ignored and pushed out into the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. City Attorney.
Just kidding. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to kind of reiterate something I heard Councilor Zelenka say and put his comments into context, which is the record for this vacation application is closed and was closed prior to Councilor Zelenka's comments. So his comments are directed at potential future land use applications, planning issues, potential future decisions for council, not the vacation decision that was the subject of the public hearing tonight and will be the subject of council's consideration on June 23rd. Thanks.
Thank you, City Attorney. Counselor Evans.
I know the applicant spoke to this, and the record is closed, but I do have a question pursuant to what Councilor Zelenka said, and that is, do we know the total number of students that are being planned for this area of the campus?
I'll look to staff to see if that information is currently in the record.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Kepper, Principal Planner. I'm not aware if that information is in the record, and so in lieu of presenting it with you if that's not available, but if it is, we'll make sure to include that within our upcoming AIS. And if there are any further questions, we're happy to answer those as well, as long as it's in the record and, you know, that.
Thank you, staff. With Councilor Zelenka, are you requesting to speak again, or is this left open? Okay, Councilor Zelenka.
I just wanted to, that's a very good point, Greg, and it's an important part, but the impacts aren't just from the students. They're from all the ancillary deliveries, all the people that work there, all the extra buildings that will be built. And so that entire plan will have not just the students, but the workers, the faculty, and all the ancillary services that occur within that area. So it's the totality of that impact. It's not just that dorm and those students, it's everything that occurs because of all that development. Yeah, it's driven by the students and the development of that area.
Thank you, councilors, and thank you for that final discussion of this evening. With that, and our public hearing have been long closed, I will now adjourn us again from this meeting. Thank you.